Welcome everyone to another healthysimulation.com webinar. So excited to have you up joining us all here today with this open access webinar. Just want to allow folks to understand the opportunity for healthysimulation.com webinars to be a part of their professional education and development plans for 2021. Certainly we have discounts on 2020 pricing still available, wherein we can have individuals for either monthly or annual subscriptions or institutional subscriptions, which provide for 5 participants from an institution to participate at a much greater and discounted rate. So we're talking about things like debriefing, virtual debriefing during COVID, remote and virtual distance-based learning tools for COVID, how to improve simulation realism with Moulage, the latest in terms of pediatric simulation research, how to hire and train for simulation staff, anything and everything that's going to help move your program along further and faster, just like the content that we publish every single day on healthysimulation.com. But now with this webinar subscription platform, enabling for expert speakers from around the world to provide us with the latest and greatest in terms of best practices in all the many areas of simulation we need in order to be successful. So today, highlighting one of the open access opportunities with one of our advertising partners with GIGXR. They were recently kind of acquired from Pearson Technologies and are really specializing specifically in AR and mixed reality learning opportunities that I think have a extreme benefit to us, especially during the COVID pandemic era, in terms of providing for ways to engage with patients safely, right, in terms of the learning opportunities and of course, making them distance-based as well. So today we're gonna be talking with Dane, who is our sales representative, a VP of sales for North America with GIGXR, and we're going to be giving a presentation, Training with Standardized Patients in the Age of COVID, Empowering Remote Teaching Environments Through Holographic Technologies, right? And so I'm really excited about learning more about this technology in terms of the latest and greatest. I had the opportunity of checking it out at the VR Voice Healthcare Simulation VR Healthcare Conference earlier this year. It was the last conference I was able to attend before everything went into lockdown. I think it was March or even April, which seems kind of scary now to think about, but that's the reality of the world that we're all living in. So for those of you that are joining us here, thank you for entering in the chat room about where you're from. I'd love to hear about your titles and your roles and your institutions, where you're coming from. That's helping us to better understand the audience here in terms of your needs, so that we can help to steer this presentation in an effective manner. And if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to enter those into the chat room. I'll be following along and making sure to relay those to Dane throughout, and then we can certainly have a Q&A session at the end. And so with that, Dane, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Lance. Appreciate it. Healthy Sim has been an awesome resource for our company, so really excited to be working with Lance. And right now, I guess I'll just hop right into it. So I'm going to share my screen so everybody can see it. But the reason we're coming to talk today is to learn a little bit about how we can still do standardized patient trainings in this kind of coronavirus world that we're living in now. And so GIGXR, like Lance was saying, was actually founded out of Pearson Education. Microsoft originally teamed up with Pearson and a few other companies, and gave them funding to develop new technologies that were going to be able to increase the immersive quality of learning that they were going to be able to do with the HoloLens 2. And so GIGXR was a product of that marriage of Microsoft and Pearson. And if you look at those two companies, GIGXR is their baby. And so when we thought about creating new software and training technologies, we really looked at the spectrum and how people learn. And so I think it takes a little bit of time to understand the spectrum. And so when we look at the different ways people learn nowadays, you can learn in the physical world. You can have books, case studies, things you're going through. You can watch videos on your computers. or you can go all the way to the other end, to the digital world, where you're actually in virtual reality. You know, there's a lot of VR sims out there nowadays where you put on an Oculus Quest or another headset and you're actually totally immersed in a world. But you know, there's pros and cons to each one, and we think that the HoloLens 2 actually really marries the best of both worlds. You're living here in mixed reality. And so, you know, the benefit of that is that you get the, you know, a power to have these lifelike holograms in your room, just like R2D2, you know, displaying a hologram of Princess Leia and Luke being able to see it and be able to have that immersive experience. That's very similar to what we're working with now with the HoloLens 2. You know, augmented reality, it's a little bit different. You're looking at the you know, hologram that's being presented in your physical world, but you're looking at it through your cell phone, so it's not quite as immersive. But you get that same kind of virtual reality experience on the HoloLens, but you're actually able to be in your physical world. So it avoids a lot of the pitfalls that end up happening with virtual reality. Sometimes people actually get motion sickness when they have a virtual reality headset on because it's so disassociative. There's funny clips on YouTube that you can see of people running into walls, or they'll be doing boxing virtual realities and they'll accidentally punch their TV or something, because you know, it does provide this whole new virtual reality that you're in, but that is a little disassociative, and sometimes that is not beneficial for learnings or communicating with a teammate, because you're in this virtual reality that's not normal, and you can't see your, you know, your classmate or your, you know, learning partner that you're with. And so, you know, we think that, you know, being on the Microsoft HoloLens 2 is one of the most powerful tools right now for learning, and we're going to see a lot of different, you know, areas move in that direction in the future. So, you know, we're talking about GIGXR today, so you know, we're going to dive into what we have been building. And so this is a nice little representation of how we kind of think about our company. So we have two applications, and those are Holo Human, which is a anatomy application, and Holo Patient, which is our standardized patient application. And so that's really what we're going to focus on today. But another thing we're going to focus on is the remote access platform. And so we've basically got a, you know, learning management system underneath all of this. And that allows you to, you know, make sure you have your students in the session, invite them to different classroom sessions, build out your lessons plans, you know, build things beforehand, add, you know, remove users, do all of the things that you need to do to teach your class. But, you know, one of the things that I'm really excited about, and what makes our technology possible in COVID, is this remote access layer. And so I'll get into that a little bit later. But first we can kind of, you know, talk about Holo Patient. So as I'm sure many of you, you know, in your simulation world, in your, you know, environment where you're trying to train students, standardized patient training is a very important part of the education, you know, pie. It's a very important piece of that puzzle. You get real interactions. You can, you know, build your clinical observation skills. You can see somebody going through and progressing through a disease state, you know, dementia, anaphylaxis, anything that you can cook up and create a case study and really expose your students to how that standardized patient is going to look, and it's going to create a much different learning experience. And so, you know, when I actually graduated with a business degree, and actually went into the medical device world straight out of college. And so I had pretty much no, you know, health training, no medical training, no anatomy training. And I was, you know, dropped into this role, and I had to kind of learn by fire and immediately study anatomy, immediately study how different disease states, you know, how degenerative disc disease was going to affect, you know, an adjacent segment in a spine, you know, case. And so when I did that, I got dropped in, and I remember one of the biggest things for me that clicked was when I was learning and looking at, you know, pieces of paper, textbooks and things. It was, you know, it was peripheral. It didn't really sink in. But once I got into a situation where I was with my surgeon and we were talking with a patient, and we started to go through the motions and hear about, you know, what was going on and look at the signs that the patient was displaying, and you know, go through those motions, then it really started to click for me. So that's what made me understand that learning in an immersive environment has massive implications for learning ability. You get the spatial, you get the, the pedagogy associated with, all those different things, and it all comes together to help you memorize and become a better learner. And so that's what we wanted to create with Holo Patient. We wanted to give, people the ability to do standardized patient training without having to hire an actor, a makeup artist, to bring them in to pull all these different things together, get them into a building, get your students all together, get them around, and get them one by one to ask questions and kind of do this. We wanted to make that whole process very simple, very slick, and make it happen at scale. So we created Holo Patient with these 16 different pathologies right now: anaphylaxis, COVID-19, septic shock, all the stuff you see there. And we created it in a way that we thought would be really immersive. So you can put a headset on, your students can put headsets on, they can see this patient immediately, they can go and check them out, they can walk around them. They can do everything that they would do with a normal standardized patient, except obviously you can't ask the patient questions because it's a hologram. But we generally make this instructor led, so you can lead through, act out these scenarios where you can give, different medications, go through the steps of the disease state, and get those clinical observation and assessment skills drilled into your student's head really well in an immersive environment. And so I'll quickly go over Holo Human because that's our other product, but we don't really need to go into this too much. It's basically just like having a cadaver on command. 3D body system, you can control it completely. It labels everything for you. You get 4,600 different body structures. So when you're, in a simulation or a medical learning environment, it's basically like being able to have a cadaver on command. It's a really fantastic way if your learners are struggling with something like, okay, how did the nerves go through the psoas muscle? You can solo that out, pull up the nervous system, pull up the psoas muscle, show your student or your learner right there, help them understand that section. And it's really cool for some of our nursing and simulation schools that use this, because they'll do classes where they'll actually superimpose a skeleton over a student for like intramuscular, injection training. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on. But the feature that I really wanted to talk about today is remote learning. And so, what we did when we saw coronavirus starting to play out is we thought to ourselves, we need to have a way to, provide standardized patient training to students who might be at home. And so, how are we going to do that when our application lives on the HoloLens? So what we focused on was actually being able to broadcast out what the instructor was, doing on their headset to students on their iOS and Android devices, whether it's an iPad, Samsung. As long as it's iOS or Android, you can broadcast out that hologram to our mobile application, and the student's going to be able to download that. They're going to be able to scan their own environment, download the content, and put that hologram right there in their room wherever they are. So that's, when I do other demonstrations, people ask like, well, is it, tied to the, instructor? Is it their own actual, hologram that they can walk around? It's the latter. It's that hologram, and it's in your space. You can walk around it. You can see the vital signs floating next to it. The vital signs are going to change as the instructor changes them and walks them through the scenario. So, realistically, what this is doing is allowing us to do standardized patient training at scale, and with people totally distant. So you can be in the classroom, all of your students can be at home. You can be doing a class with 300 people who are, spread across the world. So what's really impactful about this is, I think the way the world is kind of moving now and kind of being more distributed. We're seeing campuses with, many kind of distributed campuses, medical schools that have multiple campuses. This is a way for students to reach, or, instructors to reach more of their students and still give them that clinical standardized patient training that they're looking for. So I'm just going to play a little video and talk over it because, sometimes it's hard to imagine what that looks like. And so, here's some background. And so you can kind of see what it looks like to get into our software. Here's what it looks like where you're managing some users, going through, setting up your classes, inviting students to those different sessions. And this is how we, would envision you using the software. You can have students with their cell phones in the class, so you don't have to buy 50 HoloLenses. You can buy one HoloLens for the instructor. All the students can participate. They can manipulate the hologram at will. Those vital signs are going to follow them along. And this can apply to remote learning, and this can also apply to learning once we're back in the classroom. This gives students a really engaged way to check out a patient, to look and see, and you can actually hear. I don't have volume on this video, but you can hear how the patient is reacting. And so as an instructor, this is what it looks like on your screen. You have this lifelike hologram that's sitting in your room that you can walk around, and all your students will be able to see this hologram as well. And they can, basically do everything that you need to do with standardized patient training, minus asking the patient questions. And that's actually something we're building into the technology. We're building in branching so that you can switch to different video clips based on answers that you would normally be given from a standardized patient actor. So our goal is to really take over that space and make it so you can do standardized patient training very easily at scale and in a remote fashion. And then here we have Holo Human. And so you can actually see that you can take all these different body systems, solo them out, move them around. So it becomes very impactful when you want to show somebody, the different parts. And those are some of our clients. We're really excited about those folks. And so I'm going to move on from there. But, we've done a number of case studies with a lot of our clients. And so earlier I was talking about how they used Holo Human. And so when they walk into their classroom, they're actually able to, see intramuscular, the shoulder muscles and feel that on another student. So it's pretty powerful stuff. And then, for one of our great clients, Dr. Linda Herman over at NYU, it's providing, for her, it's just really creating that immersive experience and getting her students more engaged. It's become a very effective teaching tool for a lot of our clients. And it's, made a big difference in student engagement, number one, and also memory. They're seeing their students test better. They're seeing their students get better results because they're having these spatial memories where they're seeing the patient in front of them. They're remembering, oh yeah, he started scratching. I identified that he looked like he was going into anaphylactic shock. We gave the appropriate medicine, and then we moved into the next stage, and the patient got better. So they get that spatial recognition and that memory boost by being in the experience, just like I got that memory boost when I was in the experience with my surgeons, learning, spine surgery and how they had to go through the different steps because we were actually participating in doing it. So really powerful stuff. And I'll let this video play. This is one of our customers, SIT, and helps them,
HoloLens is mixed reality, so it means the students can see a holographic image in front of them, but they can also see the extended external environment as well.
The new COVID version is really good because we can see what it would be like for a patient to have COVID, so we're not thrown in the deep end.
Students can see a deterioration in a patient that is coming in pre-symptomatic and then a deterioration to the point where they're nearly on a ventilator. So the point behind that is to help the students link their clinical assessment and the clinical judgment skills into maintaining patient safety. Students put on a headset, and on the headset is the different applications. The students can select which scenarios they're going to watch, but in this case it's a COVID-19 scenario. So they literally just select an app and it brings it up, and you can watch from the start to the end. You can play it back over and over, and there's also a voiceover which is telling you what's happening with the patient. And then to the right side of the patient is the patient's vital signs, so they can see a deterioration as what's happening with the patient, so they can make a clinical assessment and diagnosis based on the condition. The students managed really well in lockdown and remained engaged in their education, and back on site we're now linking the theory that they've learned in lockdown into the practical environment and the scenario. So the evidence from the students is that they really enjoy this type of learning, and the visual thing is that they can actually see a condition.
We get to link what we've been learning while we were in lockdown with what we could potentially see while we go out on placement.
That's just a quick video from one of our customers. I love that video just because it's over all the way, on the other side of the world, and where there are fewer COVID cases than we have here in Los Angeles. And so they're not on the front lines, and so our software is giving them the ability to train that and learn a little bit deeper while not having to actually be at the front lines and see a coronavirus patient and have that danger of being in there. And so, just a little on our company where we think that,
So Dane,
yeah, go ahead.
just a quick couple of questions that have popped up here. One note from me, which I think is really important for our audience here to understand, is just again about the flexibility of the technology. So you're not required to have the HoloLens 2 or the HoloLens to utilize this software, right? We can use it on our phones. We can use it on our tablets. And so that's a really important, because that enables us to kind of really utilize adoption very quickly. We're not tied to a hardware requirement. It's awesome that that is there, because I've had the experience of the HoloLens. It's a beautiful, really amazing experience to kind of engage and go into these technologies inside the body while we're working with task trainers, et cetera. But here we have a system that allows us to use our phones and our tablets. And so learners, I mean, who doesn't have, most of our learners have these smartphones in this day and age, right? So the hardware we need is already built into the systems that our students are using. And so that expands our capabilities dramatically. And I want to reiterate that for our audience. That's a really important point. But two questions that have popped up for us so far. Elliot asked, are your holograms volumetric captures or 3D models?
The volumetric captures.
Volumetric captures. Okay. And so you might want to explain that a little bit to us to make sure that we understand that. And then just another quick question. How are we going to get the touch and feel element of examining a patient through the hologram? Touch is a vital part of examination and assessment. Obviously, as a EMS professional, I would have to go in and feel the abdomen at times if we were in the case of a traumatic injury at a car crash scene. And so, that's obviously an important part. So maybe, I don't know if we're going to get into that a little bit later in the presentation, but, just talking a little bit more about the volumes, in terms of the models, and then also how are we engaging with these patients?
Yeah, and so to dive into volumetric, so volumetric videos is what we use for our platform. And so, 3D models is something that's been created. Volumetric video is us in our studios here in Los Angeles actually using hundreds of cameras to basically take a volumetric video, which is a very high quality, high fidelity video that is able to, take into account volume so that it can be transformed into a hologram. So we take a video of a standardized patient actor and who has had makeup done and basically is looking exactly like a standardized patient, and we take that volumetric video of them and then turn that into a hologram, so it's not a 3D model. So hopefully that answers that question. And then number two, so yeah, the haptic part of simulation is a huge part of simulation. And so one of the ways that we've had patients, clients kind of work into that is they'll actually put the hologram, down, and then they'll have a student sit there, so that they're able to, feel that. So obviously that's not something that you can do in a remote fashion. But if they're, if everybody's sitting in the same room and you're using the technology, and then you're able to place that that hologram, you can actually place it over somebody, so that you can see the patient. Okay, you get the fact that they're coughing, they're going through anaphylactic shock, or they have a a serious leg wound, and then you can actually place that image, that hologram over somebody, kind of to increase that haptic feedback and give the the learners the ability to touch and get some haptic feedback there. So that's how some of our clients have been doing it, but that is one of the areas that it's a little bit tougher, because we're dealing with images and videos and holograms. So haptics is one of the areas where this is, I think this technology needs a little bit of help. And so that's where we're trying to go, and we're going in that direction, because once we get the haptics involved, then we've got the Holy Grail, really.
Right. And so, with haptics, I think that is quite a ways off, I think, with regards to the technologies as they are right now. There are some tools that are becoming more available with regards to haptic integrations, but I wouldn't hold my breath for that for at least another probably 5 years or so for them to be really kind of the level that we would need them at for them to be effective. But that being said, I think we're talking about a pyramid of learning, right? And so we've got the base, which would include things like classroom learning and lecture-based, all the way up through various levels of skills-based training. And then at the very tip top would be, direct patient engagement, direct to patient conversations, direct patient care. Well, one step below that would be your high fidelity simulation experiences, right? Things like this with GIGXR, that's going to enable us to kind of create a bridge between some of the hands-on skills-based practices that we're doing perhaps in the ward with the clinical skills task trainer, and now expanding that into being able to, engage with simulated patients in a realistic fashion, right? And so I think as we see these new technologies like AR and VR become more prevalent, and let me tell you folks, there is no future that exists without these technologies becoming more and more prevalent in our spaces as they continue to develop and grow, right? HoloLens 2, Oculus 2, these tools are gonna become ubiquitous with healthcare education, simulation, and training, because the levels of realism and the opportunity for that dynamic range of patients that we can quickly engage with in terms of an IPE type experience with remote learners all connecting from all over the world, looking at one patient together. There is no way that this cat is going back in the bag, right? COVID is going to accelerate these things. It's going to act as a catalyst, but these technologies continue to improve year after year. And so if you just look at how quickly we've all become addicted to our cell phones as these become tricorders, in a sense, the level of technology, even from just 10 years ago, right? It's mind boggling how much better phones are today. And you're going to see that same thing with regards to VR and AR. So this is really crucial and really important to really understand what these opportunities are. And so one question that also popped up from Deborah, she suggested nursing depends so much on communication schools. And so she would like the holographic patient to talk, or at least make statements or ask questions, even if it's not significantly interactive. And so just tell me a little bit more again about that, Dane, in terms of the communication and audio. There's going to be some levels of audio, right, that we're going to hear from this simulated holographic patient.
Yeah, so there's audio right now. We've got, the patient is, when you record the volumetric video, you're also recording audio. So they're coughing, they're saying, I feel funny. They've got, things that they're saying just like a standardized patient actor. And so the only thing we really need to do is to build in a few more branching video segments where the patient is responding to questions. So, you have a general standardized patient who you can go in and have a student ask, how are you feeling? Where does it hurt? What happened before? What was the accident? We're going to build in branching so that you can have a number of questions that you can ask, and then our patient will respond to. So that's probably going to happen very, very soon. I'm thinking Q1 to Q2 next year for us, because we're already building that into the platform. And so that's not like, 5 years down the road like you're talking about for haptics. That's going to be here in a term of months.
Good to know. Well, yeah, so that's expanding, right? And so those are becoming quickly more readable. So listen, again, this is not real patient engagement, but it's a step in the right direction towards that learning paradigm on that pyramid, getting higher and higher in terms of levels of realism, right, as we go towards that. So I think it offers unique experiences. So tell us a little bit more about these various kind of clinical skills opportunities that are coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, so what we envision our platform being is a way for, because we look at that pyramid in the same way that you do, Lance. There's kind of the bottom level. It's just, reading a textbook. It's not super engaging, but it's required. It's necessary to start the learning journey. And at the top of that pyramid is true, engagement with a physical object, like a cadaver or a patient or somebody that you're actually doing the procedure. And so, GIGXR's aim is to really be a step in that ladder, a step in that staircase. We want to provide really high fidelity, high quality immersive learning experiences, and we don't expect to take hold of the highest level. We think that, being able to go into a cadaver lab and, dissect something, or being able to have a standardized patient actor is paramount in medical education and simulation training. But we want to provide something that's going to boost that's going to increase that, and being able to do it at scale is truly powerful. And so, some of the things that we're building right now with a number of very high caliber institutions that I'm really excited about, but can't talk about quite yet because we're not finished. But we're building out hollow procedures. So we're going to be able to build a number of things into training areas that hospitals require, like central line placement, biopsy training, and hollow procedures is going to go further into kind of, surgical applications, hopefully at one day. But we're also going to build in hollow radiology, which is a radiology training tool that's going to, hopefully improve the efficacy and the speed at which radiologists can get to, very solid training so that they can, make less mistakes. And then we're also going to be building out some other, programs. Holo Chem Lab is going to be a fun one, hopefully, that we're working on, where they're actually able to take volumetric videos of chemistry experiments so that, instead of having the teacher need to, do a chemistry experiment in front of the class all the time, they can do it a little bit more safely, record it one time, and then have a volumetric representation of that the students can watch on a HoloLens or an AR on their phone. So we're building a number of other products, another number of other products to fall into our suite. And we would love for one day to be able to, go to a simulation center, go to a hospital, go to a nursing program and say, what are your training needs? We have literally everything under the sun. And we would like to, help, the immersive learning experience however we can. So if you want to do better at central line placement, we have holo procedures. If you want better maternity training, we have holo maternity. If you need to get standardized patient training because maybe your budget got cut and you couldn't bring in a ton of standardized patient actors anymore, we want to be able to help you there. So that's really our goal, is to be able to have a piece of training for every simulation center and health center and hospital to be able to improve their outcomes and build on what they're doing already, and build some immersive qualities into that learning environment that they have. And so other than that, I did want to, there's some of our customers right there, but we are kind of coming to the end of the presentation. So I want to thank everybody, but also I want to share my screen and actually show you a demonstration of this. So I'm going to stop my share real quick and share my screen on my cell phone.
So Dane, while you're setting up for that, just a quick question from Polly. Is intubation a plan for GIGXR in terms of upcoming clinical?
100%. Intubation is what we want to throw that in holo procedures. I think it's number 3 right behind biopsy. It's central line placement, biopsy, and intubation. Those are our top
Perfect.
3 that we're working on with an institution right now.
Okay, and then she's also asking about infants, preemies, and children, as well as ACLS.
Pediatrics is very high on our ask list. Most of our clients are asking for pediatrics. So the problem with that is it's hard to get people that are okay to have their baby be filmed for volumetric video right now. So,
yes, that's going to be a very specific individual who's be interested in that. So it sounds like to me that if you can imagine it with GIGXR, it's coming. So
yeah,
excited for that.
It's really pie in the sky, for us. It's sky's the limit. So we're getting approached by a number of institutions, and right now I'm walking through the steps. I'm in our mobile application, and so I apologize for having to do this in the room, but as you can see here, I've scanned my room. I tap to place the patient, and then I immediately have a patient that has been placed into my room. I can move him around. I can check out his vital signs, get in there. And so if I had my headset on, I'd be able to edit all of those vital signs, but I'm going to walk around this patient for you today. So I apologize if you can't hear me as well, but we can go around, check him out, see what that wound's looking like. It looks terrible. He's scratching. He looks like he might be going into anaphylactic shock. He's kind of got some wounds all over him. And this is what we can do, and we can transport this image into every student's room using remote. It's pretty powerful stuff. I'll stop sharing that screen now, but that's just a quick demonstration of what we can do. So I'm so excited. It's fun. It's great. We can send out these holograms to students while they're in their rooms, and when clinical hours are really hard to come by. This is really powerful because these simulations are actually going to count towards clinical hours in certain states like California, Iowa, South Dakota, Arizona, Nebraska, and a number of other states I know are approving more and more hours for online that will be able to count towards clinical hours. And so I think that's going to be the trend that we're going to see. I'm sure the National League of Nursing and a number of other institutions are going to start moving towards that direction. And I think that it's going to be really powerful to help our students get clinical hours.
Fantastic. So let's just see if there's a few more questions that we can help to address here. Thank you for the presentation, Dane. It's great to learn more about the system and what it is capable of doing. Rebecca asked, do you know if the clinical hours apply to Michigan as well? That's going to be a specific
Michigan.
question.
Actually, I do know. Michigan
Oh.
is 100%. Yes.
Very
We're
cool.
working with a bunch of clients in Michigan. So I do know about Michigan. So yes, Michigan is actually one of the more forward-thinking states, and I think it applies very heavily there.
Awesome. Fantastic. Okay. I'm just scrolling up to see if there's any other questions that I might have missed. Hollow ventilators or ventilator patients.
So our COVID-19 patient does have a ventilator. So you can see what it looks like to have a person on ventilator when you go through that application.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, a lot of people are saying thank you. They're saying great session. Certainly, I think it was really helpful for us. Again, folks, you can learn more about the GIGXR in the chat room. I put a link there that you can click on. I'll put it again just down here at the bottom, so you can go ahead and connect to them. GIGXR.com, or clicking that link will take you right to them right away. And then again, for the healthysimulation.com webinars, that's healthysimulation.com/webinars. And where we'll be continuing to provide these on a weekly basis with experts from around the world. So we've had everyone from Dr. Kelly Bryan out of Columbia University School of Nursing to Dr. Paul Frampus from Weiser out of UPMC. We've had just a huge number of folks from both the healthcare simulation, patient safety, virtual reality, come and talk to us about a lot of different topics relevant not only to COVID-19, but running and being effective in our simulation programs as well. So lots of great speakers, lots of great topics that have already been recorded and available now, and also more to come as we go month by month. So I don't see any other final questions here. So thank you everyone for participating today. Learn more GIGXR.com, healthysimulation.com. Thank you so much, Dane. And thank you to everyone for participating today.
Yeah, send me an email at dane@gigxr.com if you have any questions. And thanks so much for the time, Lance. Really appreciate it. And hope everybody had a good time.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much, Dane. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.